Well, hello everybody and welcome to today's Working Wednesday Walkabout. I've got 5 things that I must get done this week on my fall garden checklist. I've got my checklist right here. Starting with, we're going to do some light pruning on my star magnolia and also the Chinese snowball viburnum. We're going to prune it up, thin it out, and make it look just the way I want. A small tree effect versus a large shrub effect. Number 2, we're going to start a garden edit, and I'll discuss that in detail, but it is what it implies. We're going to start editing out some things that are looking too congested. Number 3, we're going to talk about what to do with all of those leaves and a good leaf rule of thumb, which ones you should compost and remove, which ones can stay where they are, etc., etc. Then we're going to talk a little bit about treasures to be on the hunt for as you're working in the garden. Maybe some rose hips, maybe some azalea branches, and then we're going to do a plant this with that. We're going to do some allium planting today along Lemon Lane. Well, there's a lot to get to. We'll take it one by one. What do you say? Let's do it. Well, boy, I've been itching to do this project and I finally have time to do it. What do I need? Well, I need some really good vision, and I'm going to use my Works battery operated hand pruners. The death pruners, Stuart calls them. They scare him because I really want to thin out and prune up this Chinese snowball viburnum, a la what my viburnum looked like at the fairy tale house. Before I do that, I want to do a quick shout out. 2 different things. I want to give a shout out to Edward and Donna, who were just here. They drove us specifically to see the cottage from Frisco, Texas. Thank you for doing that. And I also want to do a belated birthday shout out to a new, what I consider, friend, Joni Allison in Georgia. Happy belated birthday to you. Your card is in the mail. So let's get started, Stuart. So this is one of those things where I just kind of assess what I want to do, and I apologize for the blower in the back, but what I want to do. And really, this looks very congested, it looks very messy, and I want it to look much more tailored. So this looks like a fairly large branch, but when I identify my main trunks, which have a thickness of about almost an inch, those are what I want to salvage. I want to raise the canopy by at least 1/3 to 1/2, and I want to remove lots of the twigginess in here. This is one of my favorite activities. As you know, it's very satisfying, especially now that I've got these pruners that make the job so much easier and don't stress out the arthritis in my right hand. Put this on your Christmas gift list. It's also in my Amazon, my favorite things for the garden, and we'll try to remember to put up a link. Okay, so.
I do remember when I used them finally, they became a little less scary.
First of all, the most important thing is keep your left hand,
always
if you're right-handed, way out of the way. Okay, it's like butter, baby.
It does make it way easier, yeah.
So there's big and there's small things that need to be removed. Sometimes I will use these big guns only on the large things, but in this case, I'll do some large and small. And by the way, there is a delay. So when you do it, it gives you kind of time to think about it beforehand. Okay, so this is part of the elevating the canopy. I'm removing all of these things from the bottom. See how thin they are, how thin stemmed they are. This one right here is a long cane. It goes all the way up to here. This could be good fodder for making a wreath or something, but it is detracting from the shape and form of the tree itself. So see, I'm removing that. I'm going to remove a few more of these. And then, Stuart, I think we need to kind of speed it up some. Okay. So people can get an idea of what it looked like. You took some before shots, did you not?
I did.
Okay. Some of this stuff can even be removed just with your hand. But again, it's very gratifying work. So see what I'm doing at the bottom? I am exposing the trunks because I don't want any of this little leafiness to be down here. As I said, sometimes it's easier to do with your hand. That was a good one. That was a good one. Okay. So slowly but surely, you can see, sometimes it's a question of an angle. You can see how this is starting to get cleaned out. And you always come to some decision points of what you want to do. So let's just finish up the bottom first. What do you say?
Yep.
Remove those that you have already pruned because you want to get a really good look at the architecture.
You want to be able to see through it too.
You want to be able, yeah, exactly. You have learned something, Stuart, over these years, because
this is one of my favorite things you do.
I know, because transparency is just so important. So I was noticing yesterday, I was up working in my office, which is just right up there, by the snowball viburnum, and there were people that were driving by taking lots of pictures of this east side, and I thought to myself, oh, if I had already pruned the snowball viburnum, it would look so much more beautiful. Now, whether or not this is true, I don't know, but I think observational experience is telling me that I probably get heavier bloom from doing this kind of prune. And it may look like I'm doing a lot, but actually it's not that much. I'm not being overly aggressive in my pruning because I don't want to stress the tree itself.
No, it pretty quickly reveals a really cool look.
A cool look, and I think it also speaks to,
Get down here if I can not jolt around too much.
yeah.
There we go.
Don't hurt yourself, Stuart. There is some gyration, and there's also some of it you see I need to do from the other side.
Well, we can switch for a minute.
We can switch for a minute, but you can see how it's starting to be revealed. And already the canopy is being raised. And by removing all of, and by the way, it would also be helpful if I had some really good just regular hand pruners, which gives me maybe a little bit more flexibility in removing some of these. So let's take a break here, Stuart, and when we come back, let's speed it up a little bit so people can get the immediate gratification of seeing what it looks like after it's been pruned, at least on the lower level. So here's a decision point. Stuart, do I want to prune this one off? It just kind of...
I would say yes, it feels really oddball to me.
Yeah, it really, and I wonder if this whole thing can come off. What do you think? It kind of, to me, detracts from the appearance of it.
Yeah, it's balanced from where I'm
Without
standing.
it?
From where I'm standing, it still feels balanced. I know that can be different from other angles.
Okay, because I think this is one of the decision points I was talking about, but I think I can take that off from the bottom. So I will move to the bottom and see if it comes off. But we're going to stop here. You guys can get a glimpse of what it looks like, and when we come back and you see it at the end of this video, it will be all pruned up. Okay, another motivation in pruning is that I want this to be a small tree. And right now, as a large shrub, it's growing this way and it's starting to impede progress and travel up and down my side walkway. So by pruning it up, it will eventually make a canopy overhead that you walk under, not kind of some greenery you just walk through. So that's another motivation for my pruning. Okay, now I've made a mess, which I will clean up, but nevertheless, you can see that with a little bit more detail work, I have really accomplished a lot. It definitely looks more like a small tree than a large shrub. And once I clean up all of the debris and remove all of these tiny little pieces, I'll come back through with some regular hand pruners. Definitely, I think it's been a transformation. And when you look at it from this angle, and when I walk from this angle, it definitely looks much better. The other reason that I wanted to go ahead and do it at this stage was because very, very quickly, the blemishes that I've created by pruning off those stems, those will quickly heal over, and the trunks and the stems themselves won't look so blemished and kind of straggly. Let's move on to our next project, Stuart. That was number 1. Now I promised I would also show you that I was going to do it on my star magnolia, and I am indeed. And this is basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to do similar things over here that I did over there, because it is looking really congested down here, and I want to remove that congestion. I want to expose the trunks, and I definitely want it to have more of a look of a small tree. And think how beautiful it will be next spring when I'm sitting on the social patio, and this is all limbed up, beautified, de-twigged, and in full bloom. For this next item on my list, I am going to give out a public warning. Protect your hearts, protect your heads, because we're going to be a little bit brutal here. And it is time finally to remove the annual color that's left behind. Now, it just rained recently, so most of this stuff is going to be pretty easy to pull out. I've got my tarp there, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out my pentas. I'm doing this now because next week, if not the week after, we're going to start planting our tulips. So I'm removing all.
So you're making room for tulips.
I am making room for tulips. So
people don't know how many tulips you have. You have to make room for how many tulips
so
you
don't
have.
let your heart be heavy, Stuart. Let's put up a tulip picture right here.
There we go.
Right away, because this kind of hurts my heart too. I'm not lying.
Well,
okay.
I know when you pull stuff out, we get a lot of comments like, yeah, it hurts.
Yeah, and yes, some of this stuff maybe I could save over, like I'm saving over and putting in the greenhouse. My agapanthus and definitely my topiaries. But this stuff, I have found it really does better if I start out with fresh, new 4-inch plants versus some of these that I overwintered. That may not be your experience, but it's been mine. And it is one of the reasons, yes, I do wish I had a greenhouse, but I don't. And so I am just recognizing my own limitations. So I'm going to pull out all of these pentas. And boy, I'm also kind of pulling them out because it's time for all those butterflies to move on, and they don't seem to be moving on. A friend of mine yesterday told me that she had 17 chrysalis on her butterfly bush, and that was after she took out like 17 or 18 the day before. And you know, it's time for you monarchs to move on. So that is editing number 1, is I'm going to take out the pentas and any of the remaining annual color, and we'll be right back for edit number 2. Then you have some kind of semi-hardy annuals that will overwinter, and in this case, it's like this Dusty Miller. Now, it would actually help if I kept this foliage on the Dusty Miller to help it overwinter and help it insulate, especially because you can see here, It's got some exposed roots where I have already been editing out some other things. But this is a gardening risk I'm willing to take and sacrifice maybe some stuff in deference to wanting to have a really tidy garden this winter, because I don't like the look of the Dusty Miller when it's all overgrown, long, and lanky. So I'm willing to perhaps sacrifice that Dusty Miller because I want to have a tidy garden this winter. Okay, so I'm going to be doing that, and you'll see next to it there's kind of a hole where I remove that penta, and what that will also tell me then, it's kind of like breadcrumbs. So each hole from whence the pentas were removed will be the breadcrumb telling us where we're going to plant a mound of tulips. So I'm going to pull that out, cut back some stuff, and then the substantive editing begins. So for those of you, and by the way, I'm doing this for me, not for you, but for those of you that think that the front yard is just too overgrown and a little bit crowded, sometimes I would agree with you. And that's not so much because it's got an overcrowded look that I dislike, but because horticulturally, I didn't know when I planted some of this stuff how successful it would be. And I was new to some of these specimens, like the butterfly candy, and I didn't know just how well they would perform. So I now realize that I don't need quite as many of the butterfly candy because some of them got really huge. So what am I going to do? Like this one here that I already cut back earlier in the year, but it's very happy. Now, after a good rain, when the soil is still, it could be a little bit drier, but when the soil is still workable, I'm going to go ahead and this shows just how new this plant is because I dug up that root ball in its entirety and it's really not suffering at all. And then I will save that and I will gift it to someone. Would you or Susu like a butterfly candy, Stuart?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, we'll ask her. If not, I know lots of other people that would.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'm editing that one out to let that one grow, and
I suppose
so
I
that
should always say yes for mom. So yes.
well, yes to mom, yes to Susie. So there's one that I took out. Remember, I am leaving my boxwood basil in place because I want it to go to seed and drop some seed, and then I will take it out. Over here, I've got another butterfly candy that is crowding out this area, plus the other things. I swear in the past 2 weeks, because of the rainfall we've had, things have grown more in the past 2 weeks than they did all summer.
You touched that basil and now it's all I can smell.
I know, me too. I love it. I love it. It's a little garden joy. Okay, so I'm going to take this one out. And now this will give more space for my drift of foxglove to grow. So I'm already removing 2, and the garden is none the worse for wear. You probably, after I remove it, can't even tell. And these are really still very good, very viable plants. Got another one over here. Now remember, this was my first year with the butterfly candy, and I did not know they would perform so spectacularly up here in this amount of sun. So I've got another one. Also, I kind of determined which ones were my favorite and which ones I didn't like so much, and definitely the little lavender is my favorite variety. Okay, so early Christmas gifts for Susu. The butterflies and Susu will thank us. Let's move on to the next thing on our checklist. Okay, let's talk a little bit about leaf strategy and leaf etiquette. So, number one, tomorrow is Thursday, and you can see my overgrown ryegrass is going to get mowed because it really is starting to get pretty tall. And as they mow it, they are going to come up with that perfect nitrogen carbon blend of green grass and brown leaves that I will then happily put into my composter. Oh, yeah. So that's perfect. The other thing it does when they mow up the leaves is it gets the leaves off of the turf. Because if it rains again, like it did rain last week, all of these leaves that are on the turf could possibly suffocate that turf, especially if you have ryegrass, if you have fescue, some other things like that. So as a rule of thumb, you want to remove leaves off of your turf, but not off of your flower beds. So typically what I do or have them do beforehand is I have them blow as many leaves as possible into my flower beds, because they will mulch the flower beds. They will provide not only insulation for the shrubs that are already at their mature height, but they will also insulate any tiny little darling seedlings, like some of that boxwood basil, if it germinates, that then when I excavate them next spring, they will have been tucked in under that blanket of leaves. Now this is a job that I try to do almost daily, and I consider it good garden etiquette. And that is when you have lots of leaves that are on your steps, particularly in my case, when they're at the bottom of this last step, you can see it would be hard to tell that you had reached ground level. And because of that, you sometimes could easily trip. So almost on a daily basis, I try to get out my blower or even just use my hands as scoops. I've also got some of those leaf scoopers. We'll put a link to those right here. But I try to remove these leaves because I really want to make passage up and down my stairs as easy as possible. Now, once I get my box full or my basket full of leaves, I can do a couple of things with them. And by the way, while they're dry and crispy like this, before I put them in, I do try to give them, you know, a good crumble, because it's in their crumbled state that they're really beneficial. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do two things with these leaves. Number one, I'm going to throw some of them into my flower beds. So I'll basically just do that. I'll just throw them into the flower beds. Well, they will break down some before next spring, and I'll do that all around in different areas. But I especially make sure that the areas around where my boxwood basil is gets mulched. So when I ultimately do pull out the basil after a hard freeze, that's when I'll really come in with some of my leaves. But here's another trick.
I just remember what you used to do with leaves.
What's that?
When you cover up all the outside topiaries, is that what it was?
Oh yeah.
In that corner?
Yep, absolutely. Okay,
Brilliant.
Now speaking of tender seedlings, so you may recall that I had some Thai basil, and actually I had some boxwood basil for a while, some different kinds of basil. I pulled it out, which is one of the reasons that the soil level is so low in this planter. But look at all those basil seedlings in there. This is where seedling recognition is important. I can very much tell from that distinctive leaf form that this is indeed a tiny little basil seedling. I've still got lots of those soapberry bugs in there. But here's another thing that I can do. I can take some of these leaves and I don't really care that there's not a lot of soil in there, because I don't need all of these little darlings to overwinter. I'd be happy with 5 or 6. More would just be a bonus, okay? So I'm doing this. And then you say, well, Linda, how are these going to stay in place and not blow away? And that is where the cloches come in. So I can really secure these kind of down. These are, by the way, from Gardener's Supply. I'll try to put a link. And I can really kind of secure these down. And that way, not only will the leaves not blow away, but neither will the garden cloches. Okay, let's do a quick tutorial on how to plant an allium bulb. Number one, pick your weapon of choice. Now, lots of people I know, and lots of you out there, and friends of mine, you really like to use this auger that's attached to the drill. It's a little bit too wet to do that right now. You can see how that wet earth, that wet clay has clumped on the auger. I have found, however, that the drill is pretty heavy, that it takes more than one pass, and for me, not for you, but for me, it is much more efficient to just use a shovel. So you be you, I'll be me. The important thing is we get the job done. So we are planting today multiple allium, and this is a pair this with that. So if you are a fan of all of the southern living plants that I have along Lemon Lane, the Miss Lemonabelia, the Lemon Lime Nandina, the Golden Feverfew, what else do I have in here? The Touch of Gold, little Goldie Hollies. If you are a fan of those, then you too might want to try this, plant this with that. And at first, originally, I was going to do, and I have some remnants from last year, of some tiny little muscari, little grape hyacinths that I planted along here. And they were kind of sweet, but they didn't quite have the drama that I wanted. And also, I just feel like they didn't make enough of a statement. So what I've decided to do is to plant my ambassador alliums from Color Blends along this drift. And there's a twofer motivation for me doing this. Number one, it'll be spectacular, the color combo of that purple. Stuart, let's put up a picture of those alliums. It will be a spectacular color combo of gold with that purple or blue. But the other thing is, what kind of bothers me is the allium foliage begins to die back and turn brown even while the seed heads and the flowers themselves are still upright and contributing to the garden overall. What this will do is it will hide them underneath the foliage of the Abelia and the Nandina, and it will hide out that foliage, but you will still see those wonderful purple spheres growing up through the foliage. So I've got kind of a heavy hitter shovel right now, and again, I am very cognizant that this earth is a little bit too wet, but this is TV, and I have to do this while I have time. I will probably wait until this weekend to do the rest of them, but for this demonstration. I want to dig a hole about 8 to 10 inches, and I have found that for allium, the typical rule of 2.5 times the diameter or the height of the bulb is useful, but you can go even deeper than that because these are bulbs that are going to perennialize. In other words, unlike the tulips, I'm going to leave these in the ground, which is another reason I want to hide them on Lemon Lane. So the first thing that I'm going to do after I dig the hole that is, why is Stuart laughing?
You keep tricking me. I keep trying to go down. It's cool.
Yeah.
No,
sorry.
Keep going.
I keep thinking of one more important thing.
We're good.
I don't want to forget to tell you guys because it's been so valuable to me. Okay, so I've dug a hole that's 8 to 10 inches. Then I've got some gravel. Because alliums, to be really successful, don't just want good drainage, they demand good drainage. So if you want them to perennialize in your garden, then you want to give good drainage to them, and especially in heavy clay soil like mine, that gravel really, really helps. Okay, so I've got my bag, my mesh bag of Color Blends alliums. Okay, you can see right here which ones I've got. These are ambassador. Now, by the way, there's still a long planting window. In fact, I've never planted them in the spring, but I believe alliums you can even plant in the spring. But these bulbs are good. They're unblemished. They're firm. Look at that, the quality of that bulb. And they're large. So you can see that's the root right there, the root side right there. I'm going to put that on top of that gravel. I'm not going to add any kind of amendment or anything. Now, sometimes what I will do is if I've got lots of leaves, I'll kind of throw some of those leaves into the soil as kind of an additive. to break down my clay soil, but then I just backfill it. Now, here is my special tip that I'm doing this year. Every year, I've said I was going to do it. I never did it, but I just ordered them. Stuart, what did I order so I remember where these bulbs are?
Oh, what is it?
Okay, I just ordered a whole bunch of really bright, almost fluorescent garden teas.
Oh, cool.
And these are bamboo, so they won't break down quickly over time. And because they're bright, I'll be able to see where they are, where I've planted the alliums, so that next year when I'm planting, I don't dig through them. And if I want to add to them, do you see that happy worm? Look there.
There he is, yep.
If I want to add to my display of them, I'll know where I already have them. So it gives me a frame of reference. So I'll give you the link. I got a whole bunch of them, and they're going to be very, very helpful for a number of different things. But there is the #1 allium that I've planted along Lemon Lane. And this will be very sweet and very whimsical, coming up with this big purple head right in front of this wrought iron fence surrounding the porch. And then the remaining allium are going to be in a drift, a riggedy-raggedy drift like this, growing up and down Lemon Lane. And then in short order after that, some of the hydrangeas will start coming into bloom. The scabiosa, like it's growing at the feet of it, that will be in bloom, and I think it really will be a wonderful rollout for spring along Lemon Lane. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, while you've still got your cool gloves on, and you're really surveying and feeling very satisfied for the work you've gotten done, don't forget to really appreciate what little garden gifts there are that are extremely seasonal and that you might want to take advantage of to bring inside later. So one thing I'm really looking at are these It's a Breeze roses. Now look at how beautifully they have bloomed. They continue to bloom. There's still lots of buds on them. But what I'm looking for right now, I'm really looking to see how the rose hips are starting to mature. And rose hips, can you see that right there? Yeah. Rose hips will eventually turn kind of an orange color and might be really beautiful for something that I want to use in a holiday arrangement. So I'm keeping my eye on them to see if they indeed are starting to transform into an autumnal color. The other thing that you want to do while you're doing your garden edit is look to see if there is not only something that needs to be removed, but might need to be removed and just transplanted or replaced in another area. And for example, right here, let me see if I can kind of either get out of the sun or get in the sun, one of the two, is one of these gorgeous Fire Chief arborvitae. This is a southern living plant, one of my favorites. And as you can see in its petite form, it is very, very happy there. But it's being kind of crowded out by the success of the kaleidoscopibelia. So you can see these over here. Look at how large those have gotten.
Oh wow, quite a difference.
Yeah, that weren't encumbered and thugged out by a nearby plant. So this one, as I am surveying the garden, I've decided that indeed this one needs to be moved. Where it will be moved, I'm not really sure. I'm going to do some more garden editing to see where there's a void and a place that really needs winter interest with an evergreen that will ground the garden even in the coldest of months. Well, if you guys have found these tips helpful, and I hope you have, then definitely make sure to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, make sure, most importantly, to share it with others who may just be learning about gardening, and also stay tuned this weekend because we're going to be planting up some amaryllis bulbs. I'm going to share with you some of my experiences at Movara, lessons that I've learned, things that I am working on. And Stuart, what have we forgotten? The question of the day. Okay, so my question of the day is a decision point, and I want your input. As I was looking at the garden, particularly the evergreens, I was noticing from down here, just as you're looking up at the cottage, at this village of now teenage boxwoods. They're not small anymore. And I've got two, one right here and one right there in front of these beautiful globes. And I'm wondering if they are kind of detracting from the globular shape of the spheres of these boxwood globes. So my question of the day is, would you leave them, or would you, like the fire chief Arbor Vita, find another home for them in the landscape? Because I tell you, any boxwood never generally leaves my house. You guys have a great Wednesday. I'll see you this weekend on Signature Style Saturday. Okay, as I'm boxing up these butterfly candy to give to Susu, Stuart, put these in the ground for Susu right away, okay? I wanted to share with you my outfit of the day. First of all, my beloved Cool Jobs gloves. Love them, love them, love them. Great Christmas gifts. They're just wonderful overall. You know about those, but what you may not know about is my new sweater. So I had seen this, I don't know, on Pinterest, I think, and I really loved it. I loved, and I may have just messed up my mic, Stuart.
That's fine.
But I love the mock turtleneck. It's not a full turtleneck, so I don't get overly warm. It's breathable. I love the fact that the sleeves are a little bit long, but you can roll them up if you so choose. But I love this black and white detailing. It does come in other colors, but I just really love it. And I also love the fact that I believe it's on sale right now. So I'll put up a link to what I am calling my favorite cozy products for fall. And this will be one of the products in that cozy shop. So I'll try to put up the individual link, but if you can't find the individual link, just look for Shop Linda's Cozy Favorites. There'll be all sorts of fun things in there. Okay, my jeans are thrifted. You've seen them many times before. I am very proud that they're a little bit looser this week than they were last week after I got back. A staple. This is a really a gardening staple I think every true gardener needs to have one pair of, and that's a pair of Hunter tall boots. So you guys know I have a wardrobe of them. This is the time of year and in spring that I really bring them out. There's all different colors. If I could only have one color, I would probably have red. And you guys know I do have a red pair. In fact, I've had them for so long. They might need replacing. But right now, I'm not sure. I will check and see, but I bet Hunter boots are one of the things that are going to be on a Black Friday sale. So if you want to get one, a pair for yourself or a pair for a gardener in your life, because I just think they're fabulous. They're one of my favorite products of all time. Then I would look for Hunter boots. My earrings, I actually got my earrings in Singapore, I believe. Got these in Singapore. Love them. What am I forgetting, Stuart?
Glasses?
Sunglasses. Got from Amazon. My hair is a mess today because I've been working outside. And then I still have my typical watch band. So a lot of you have been asking me to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit more regular in my outfits of the day. And I am definitely going to try to do that. So thank you guys.